So I'm headed out to the local recycling center today to look for a fan out of maybe a laptop or something to put on a new Raspberry Pi build that I've been working on. I've worked out a deal with the local recycling center guy, and basically what he lets me do is I bring him all of my old broken or more or less useless computer parts, and he basically lets me take whatever I want. So I like to take advantage of that when I'm doing computer builds or just messing around with stuff like the Raspberry Pi. If you've got a local recycling center, I definitely check that out if you're interested in kind of the stuff that I'm doing here. Just ask for the manager or somebody in charge and just say, hey, if I bring you some stuff, do you mind if I take some stuff? And a lot of times they really don't care. But I guess what I'll do is I'll head there, I'll maybe film some stuff if it's not too busy or anything, and then I'll update you guys on anything that I get. Alright, so it's actually a new day. I went to the recycling center yesterday and they were open, but they had the electronics bin closed. So anyway, what I was going to look for, like I mentioned, was a fan for this small little Raspberry Pi build that I'm working on. This is a Raspberry Pi 3. It's been overclocked to, I think it was up to 1.4 gigahertz. If you want to know how to do that, just let me know in the comments and maybe I'll make a video on how to overclock a Raspberry Pi. This particular one is running RetroPie. I use it pretty much exclusively for retro games, stuff like that. And when you overclock a Raspberry Pi, obviously you're going to need really good ventilation, you're going to need heat sinks and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're basically going to burn it out. So I went there looking for a fan to complete this build, and what I found was this old tablet, which should work pretty much perfectly. Actually, I found this tablet there probably 6 months ago, and I took a couple parts out of it, put it back together, and then took it back to the recycling center. But it was still there this time, and I remembered that it had a fan in it that should work perfectly. You can see just up here there's a small little ventilation hole, and if I remember right, the fan was basically the exact same size as that hole, which would make it the perfect fit for this Raspberry Pi. So we'll get to that again shortly. Basically what I'm going to do is just take this apart, get the fan out, put it in the Raspberry Pi, and if the heat sink from this is usable in the Raspberry Pi, I may use that too because the Raspberry Pi doesn't have a heatsink at the moment either. But in addition to that, I actually found some pretty cool stuff there. I found 3 tubes that seem to be in fully working order. I don't know how well the camera's going to focus on that, but I actually pulled these tubes out of what looked like a really old audio amplifier that had been completely gutted, except for the tubes, and I've actually been needing a few tubes for one of my own audio amplifiers. So we'll test these out here in a minute too to see if these work as well. And now the final thing, which is actually what I'm most excited about and didn't expect to find at all, was a set of, if I can get it untangled here, Audio-Technica headphones. These headphones are ATH Pro 700 headphones. They're studio monitoring headphones, and these retail for just under $300. Now, when I found these, I thought, okay, maybe one of the speakers is blown. Surely there's something wrong with it. But they work perfectly, and they sound amazing. The only issue that I found so far is with the tip here. It's got a little bit of corrosion on it, but that's nothing that you can't just buff right off. But it's amazing that they've been sitting out, not in the rain, but in the moisture of the rain, because it's kind of under an awning, the recycling bin is, and they still work and sound perfect. Absolutely amazing. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's move on and let's see if these tubes work. Alright, so I checked out the tubes, and what I was wanting to put these into was a Behringer MIC200, which is just a basic audio amplifier, and it turns out this is actually the wrong size tube. I'm not really too knowledgeable about tubes, but this is an 8-pin tube, and this requires a 9. So I guess we won't be doing the tubes today. I'll keep looking around and see if maybe I can find some more tubes later on, and then we'll get back to this. But for now, let's go ahead and we'll take this tablet apart and see about getting that fan out of here to put in the Raspberry Pi. And I'm not too concerned with, really breaking it because it has some major overheating issues. Anyway, this is the fan that we're going to be taking out here, and let's do a comparison again here. That would be, just a perfect fit for this Raspberry Pi. So let's get that fan taken out and see if we can't get it hooked up to the Pi. Alright, so there's our motherboard completely taken out. And looks like what we're left with is some shielding and the fan. So let's continue on with trying to get this fan out of here. And there we go. Alright, well that was a lot of a lot of extra legwork just to get this off. So let's see if we can separate the fan from the webcam without too much hassle. And there we go. That's it. So here's our little fan that we're going to be attaching to the Raspberry Pi. So I'm thinking I will probably line it up, say somewhere right around in here. I believe the processor is right around in this area. I'll have to take the case off again to know for sure, but that should be a pretty nice ventilation system, especially for just running, some retro games and whatnot. So let's get this taken apart and see if we can get that fan mounted in there. Alright, so much later, I finally got the screws out of the case, took the case off, and I'll show you the plan for the fan. So you can see our two main chips are located right here, and what I'm wanting to do is, I guess it would go this way. I'm going to mount the fan just like that, so that when the case is closed, the fan is going to be right about there. Let me just try to bring it up closer. You got your two chips here and here. Fan's going to be right about there, so that should give pretty good airflow over both of those chips. So what I'm going to do is take a couple measurements, mark off each of these screw holes with a Sharpie or something, and then I'm going to take some of these bolts and I'm going to bolt the fan to the top of the case right here. So let me get that started and I'll be right back. Alright, so here's what we're working with so far. I've got the fan already attached to the top with just the screws at the moment. I haven't put the nuts on them yet. But one thing that actually worked out really well is the cable for the fan. Let me try to get in there and show you. The connector on the end of it actually fit perfectly over these pins on the Raspberry Pi. So right now I have it connected to pin, I believe the numbers are pin 4 and pin 6. I've heard online that if you connect it to pin 2, you can actually get a slightly higher fan speed. I assume that's because maybe pin 2 is a different voltage. But for this project, I'm not really going to bother, taking the connector off with how well it really fit there. So I'll just leave it at its current voltage for now. I'm going to attach the bolts onto here, and then we'll put it all back together and see how it works. Alright, so we're all bolted down here. Let's go ahead and get this thing put back together. Also need to... Wow, that's going to be a snug fit. Oh, it's just barely going to reach. Oh, wow. I hope that's not going to put too much tension on those cables there, but still need to find some screws to put in the bottom here because, like I said, the ones I had, they are done for. Just barely made it. Okay, so here is the almost finished product. I need to, like I said, replace these screws, but here on the top you can see, the screws for the bolts for the fan. So let's go hook this thing up and go from there. Alright, and this build was a success. Let me take the camera off here and show you. You can see that fan is spinning, and it's actually putting out a pretty decent amount of air, especially for a fan of that size. Alright, so one game that I've always had a little bit of trouble playing on this system is Ocarina of Time. So let's see, wow, that's loud. Let's see if this is going to run any better now. I'm not really assuming it will. I don't think cooling is going to affect performance all that much. But let's just see how it goes. Yeah, it looks like it's running about the same. The real issue that I'm having with it is frame rate. I know like a lot of games, they'll run fine when you have choppy audio, stuff like that. This game, it looks to be running, at least to me anyway, at full speed. But for some reason, the frame rate is just super low. Yeah, it looks like it's working pretty well perfect. Alright, so now you know how to modify a Raspberry Pi to have a cooling fan in it. Basically, all you just need to do is find a really small fan that you can fit in the case and plug that fan into pins 4 and 6, or possibly even 2 and 6, whichever works best for you. I'm super excited about this. If you guys want me to make a video showing you how to overclock RetroPie, let me know and I'll gladly make a video on that too. But anyway, I appreciate you guys watching today. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you loved it, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time.